Today we're here at Shady Grove in Pickens, West Virginia. Ed Daniels, and my wife Carol bought this farm about 7 years ago. We had harvested ginseng for many years and planted in other locations that was compromised due to population. Folks found it, dug it, stole it from me, and we was searching for this remote place and we found it. And we moved our ginseng and our golden seal and other roots here to help preserve them and to create seed banks, hopefully for the state in the near future, so young folks that's wanting to grow these wild medicinal plants will have a seed source that has good genetics and can be passed on for many years. What we have here is a ginseng patch that I've created. I call it a nursery. And I've got some parental plants here at the end that we're trying to conserve and protect the berries. We've got these little jewelry bags on it. And as I take these seeds in the next 2 weeks after September 1st, we'll take those seeds and stratify them. We'll move these babies out into the forest here, relocate them to new homes, and we'll start new seeds here for another nursery to come. These plants are pretty hardy, although the deer browse is rough on them. When you get a young little seedling that only has 3 leaves, that's only about a year old, that's come up, if it gets eaten by deer or a rodent or a rabbit, it's done. It won't come back. So I try to build things structurally to deter the wild animals from eating it, and we'll cover this with screens or wrap fence around it. Sometimes I'll brush it up, as you'll see on out here, with limbs and such that I found laying in the forest floor. We had about 1,000 babies here before the deer browsed on this end. So there's going to be a lot of new growth that's going to be moved into our forest, and we want to repopulate it and build a sustainable ecosystem that's not so much a monocrop. We want to add in such things as the golden seal, cohosh, bloodroot, and other ferns. Maidenhair ferns is a good one to put in there with the ginseng. But as we continue to think about the future of our ginseng, we need to think about not always digging the root. We want to harvest the top. The top of the plant can be used in a lot of medicines these days and has really gained in popularity in the last 2 years. Well, as we have approached the early fall here at Shady Grove, we're looking at doing some transplants with our gardens, and we have a mix of age grouped sang here. A lot of the younger sang is what we're looking to move. The 3 prongs that's been left over the years, as we take the young sang out, we keep some there to help us self-propagate some seed, but we also plant the seed ourselves in rows. So as we harvest a lot of this, you're going to see that it's in a row, and we're going to go in fairly deep. This is loose soil. And I want to get below the root and pull up. And what we're looking for is the young rootlets. Looks like little baby carrots. And that's a juvenile sang from the seed, the wild seed that we had planted here off of our sang patches. This particular plant's probably 2.5 years old. It's not very big, but we want to transplant him and get him out away from the rest of his family and get it out into the woods here so he can grow as wild could ever be. Although he was transplanted and repropagated, but it was started from the wild seeds that we took from our plants here at Shady Grove. And you'll see a couple of them will be different sizes. Not all are the same, but this is real loose soil. We plant it that way. One of the things that you run up against with ginseng, if it stays in loose soil, it won't have the growth rings on it that gives it the wild characteristics. So if you was looking to buy or sell ginseng that's raised in this loose soil, the dollar value on it wouldn't be worth as much. But what we're going to do, we're going to take these rootlets that we started in loose soil, so they have a good start, get a good root system on it, and we're going to take it out here shortly and reintroduce it to the wild in some tight soil. And our approach is with a dipple bar, as I'll show here shortly after we get a few of these harvested. And it'll be in compressed soil, so as it grows it would be just like it was in the wild, and it'll take on the wild characteristics of its nature. Alright, what I'm doing here is making the indentations, or the future home of our ginseng rootlets. And I'm just putting it into the soil enough to twist it around a little bit so it has a fair chance of letting the roots spread enough and to grow, draw the water. Water's somewhat important, but you don't want it in a wet area. A moist area is fine. What I want to do, this root's already in a curl. Sometimes that's not desired, but it is what it is. We're going to find the biggest hole that I have, and we're going to put that root right in the ground as such. Now I'm putting it in at a slight angle, not a 90 degree, but maybe a 45, trying to keep the roots straight, not curl them quite so much. And I want the top to be close to the top of the ground surface. With that, the ginseng will freeze. And it is required for it to freeze, I think I've heard 20 some times per year, maybe even more. But it does require a freeze and thaw for it to continue to grow. So it is a pretty hardy root in that aspect. Freeze does not kill it off completely. It might kill the top. It may hinder the development of the berry pod if it's froze as it's starting to come out in the spring. But with what we're doing today, we're planting a root, knowing the top's going to die off here in the next week or so. It's a fall thing. And next spring, that little bud that I showed you earlier, you'll see it right there, that'll be the new top. And that'll create the scar, which will indicate this year's growth. So we can count the years on that. So it's not hard to tell if a ginseng digger was in the woods and he come up on that, that's a two-prong. By law, he should not dig that. Okay? Although that root is older than 5 years old, by law, the top is what determines what you can dig, and you're not supposed to dig it if it has green berries still exposed. They all have to be red. If you harvest a green berry, I don't believe they'll ripen. If you harvest it green, it's green. It doesn't turn red eventually. So therefore, you lost the chance of that berry, which could have 2 to 3 seeds in it, that could produce more plants. So you want to wait until all the berries have fallen off or they were red, and it should be at least a two-prong. Now we're here on the farm, so I can legally dig this two-prong off my own land to repropagate it from my nursery into the wild. And what we're generating here is the future of Shady Grove, because this plant will produce, as you can see, it had a berry pod. It's had a few seeds on it, but hopefully next year it'll come up as a nice three-prong and produce us a nice pot of berries that will hopefully start us another nursery to produce more plants. So, deer browse is a big problem with the ginseng here in the Mountain State. Chipmunks, moles, and voles play a big part, but you know, a lot of times if a deer browses off these young sang, such as this, if a deer would eat the top off of it, he probably has put the end to that sang's life, and it may never create a top. They say it has to be at least a two-prong or bigger to survive that. So what we're looking at there is a young sang that has the bud scar coming up. It is just a 3-leaf, and it's probably its first year producing, so hopefully no deer will browse that one off. Can move on over here and plant some more in this area. I don't want to put too much in one spot. Ginseng, you put too many plants in one area, especially if they touch. As they get bigger and the tops touch, it can create Alterian blight, and we want to avoid that if all possible. Since we're a no spray farm,